Hey grade 8s, so welcome to 8.5. This is the last section in integer multiplication and division unit. We're going to again review BEDMAS, and you guys are good at this already. So let's write this down, and if you have your whiteboards handy you can write it on the side because we're going to use it over and over as we practice orders of operations with integers. Okay, so we know that of course always brackets come first, and then after brackets come exponents, which we won't be using in this unit. Then you have learned, now that you are in grade 8, that division and multiplication go in order from left to right. So the same way you read words, you need to do division and multiplication. There we go. Same thing with addition and subtraction. It's not necessarily add before subtract. It needs to go in order from left to right, the same way as you read words. And A stands for addition, which you know, and S stands for subtraction. Okay, so on your whiteboards or you're on your loose leaf as you're doing this practice, I would like you to have that written on the side so you can refer to the BEDMAS orders of operation rules. Review number 2. Okay, I know you're all starting to sing the integer multiplication and division song. Same signs, positive. If we're multiplying numbers or integers with the same signs, we will always have a positive answer. So the bottom one, 2, a negative times a negative, same signs, it will yield a positive answer. Different signs, negative. And positive times a negative will always yield a negative answer. Negative times a positive, always negative. Okay, so if you need to, if you don't set, this isn't something you've committed to memory yet, I'd like you to write it on the side of your whiteboard beside the BEDMAS rules. Okay, you can press pause and do that if you need to. Our third review is adding and subtracting integers. Now you did this back in grade 7, and we had a little bit of practice with this at the beginning of this year. Let's review together. Positive 3 plus positive 4 will yield us a positive 7. And if we need to, we've looked at the number line before. Sometimes we consider, or we think about a thermometer, right? Here's 0. Let's just say plus 5, plus 10, negative 5, negative 10. Let's do that for a little bit of assistance. Okay, negative 2 plus a positive 5. Now, when we are thinking about this, plus is to the top, the negative is to the bottom. We can also think about this with a number line, something like that. So, if we think of negative 2 plus a positive 5, or negative 2 add positive 5, we're going to move in the positive direction, which is to the right. Of course, negative would be to the left. So if we start at negative 2 and we move positive 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so our answer would be positive 3. Now, some of you can do this in your heads, and good for you. Others of you will need to look on the front of the classroom board or beside BEDMAS and beside your integer multiplication and division rules. You can draw a quick number line like I did here, just to help you be able to add and subtract integers. Another thing to note is that integers are not, when we add and subtract integers, it's not like multiplying and dividing rules. So in multiply and divide we say same sign positive, different sign negative. Those rules do not apply to adding and subtracting. We need to use the number line and go in the positive or the negative direction. All right, let's look at the next one now. We've got plus 5, subtract positive 2. Now, when we see a subtract positive there, what we're going to do is add the opposite. So I'm going to rewrite this just for our consideration, to adding the opposite. Okay, now if we consider positive 5 on our number line plus a negative 2, that means we've moved 2 in the negative direction, will yield us a positive 3. Same answer as the second example. All right, let's look at the last question here. Negative 3 subtract a positive 1. Now, we're always going to add the opposite. So let's write this as negative 3 plus, now we're adding the opposite, and so we will add a positive 1. Okay, so we consider adding the opposite when we see the subtract sign there. We always want to have that add right here. Okay, so if we add the opposite then, negative 3, if we look at the number line, or we can consider the thermometer and think that it's negative 3 outside and it gets 1 degree warmer, or one number towards the positive, and our answer will be negative 2. Okay, now we are going to do the handout to review adding and subtracting integers at this point. So I'd like you to pause the video and go back to Google Classroom and open up that practice. And we're going to at least do the evens or the odds on that assignment. Okay, some of you will be very good at this, but I still want you to do half the questions. If you're someone that struggles with this and you need, now that you're a year older from when you did it last, if you need more experience, then I would like you to consider doing all of those questions. Okay, I'll see you on the flip side. If you haven't paused it, please do so now and complete that handout. Okay, welcome back. Now that you've had some adding and subtracting practice with integers, let's continue through the lesson. So you've got a couple things on your whiteboard now to remember. You've got the the multiplication and division rules for integers. That's given on the side here. Also on the side of your whiteboard, you're going to have bed mass written, just to remind you, and if you wanted to at the top to have a number line handy, that would be good as well. Okay, let's go ahead and look at this. Now we're going to use the same strategy as we did when we were working with orders of operations using fractions. We're going to underline the part that we're working on. So no brackets, no work in the brackets anyways, no exponents. Let's go to division and multiplication. And again, we have to move left to right, so this part comes before this part. Okay, so negative 15 divided by negative 3, same signs, make our answer positive. 15 divided by 3, 5. I forgot to say, pause it here, and why don't you give it a try, and then compare your answer when you're ready. All right, then secondly, we've got positive 5 subtract positive 4 times negative 2. Now, if you wanted to show both the division and the multiplication in the same step, that would be okay. I want you to, though, be the same way as we did fractions. I want you to be working downward instead of across. And when you perform an operation, the parts of the question that you're not working with need to be written down. Okay, I don't want to see a little bit on the side here doing this, and then you write your answer, and then you write part of it here, and you write part of it here, and then you go over here. It might make sense to you, but it does not make sense to me when I look at it, or any of your friends when you're showing your work. I want you to present your work in a way that is logical to anyone who sits down and has a look at it. Okay, that's part of the math process, is being able to show the proof of your work, and showing proof needs to be done in a logical fashion. Okay? Okay, went a little off the wall there. Let me delete that. Okay, let's do the next step. Of course, that's the multiplication. So we'll have positive 5 subtract positive 4 times negative 2, have different signs. So our answer will be negative, and 4 times 2 is 8. Good. Now we've got positive 5 subtract negative 8. When we see this here, we always want to add the opposite. So let's rewrite this question. Adding the opposite will yield 5 plus positive 8. And 5 plus 8, we know that to be positive 13 is our answer. Now, one more thing before we move on. I'm going to grab a highlighter here. This step here, where we have a negative, or we have a subtracting a negative, what we really have there is two negatives. We know that the rule is same signs make a positive. And so you can see there, two negatives turn this all to positive. That's another way of looking at it. Mr. Thomas and I, both as we teach math, like the idea of always adding the opposite. So when we see the subtract sign here, when we see that this is subtract, we want to turn that to add, and then we're always going to add the opposite. And that works out every time. It's a great way to talk about those two negatives there. Okay, let's move on to the next question. All right, same thing. You can pause it, and then I will reveal my work to show the answer. Try it on your own, please. All right, I've underlined the division. That would be the first thing you would work on in this orders of operations with integers. A negative divided by a positive will yield a negative 7 as an answer. Okay, now we have to move on to the addition and subtraction. Remember that addition and subtraction absolutely must be done from left to right. You will not get the correct answer if you do it randomly. It has to be left to right. So our first step is this subtraction here. And again, we want always to add the opposite. And I want you to write down the remainder of the question, okay, with an equal sign. So negative 6 plus positive 9. Pause it here again if you want to consult a number line. But if you're negative 6 outside and it gets 9 degrees warmer, we're going to be sitting at a positive 3. Plus a negative 7 equals, now we're already adding here, so we're just going to do positive 3 plus negative 7. It's positive 3 out and it goes 7 degrees lower. We're going to be sitting at a negative 4. Excellent. Again, pause it, try it on your own, and then you can turn it back on to reveal the answer. Here's the steps in the answer. We did the brackets first. And then we did the multiplication. You can see it's underlined there. I guess I could have underlined my brackets to show I did that work there. And then we added the negative 6. Now, I want you to have a look at your work on your whiteboard. Does it look like mine? Is every step of the question written down in each line? Have you worked downward instead of across? Is your answer highlighted by a box or somehow? Can I easily tell which part is your answer? Good. Let's move on, and we're going to do one word problem together. 1 week in March in Watrasas, the daily high temperatures were, that list follows. So there should be 7 of them since it's 1 week, and the capital C stands for Celsius. What was the mean daily high temperature for that week? First of all, we have to understand the language. When we say mean daily high temperature, the word mean, when we're in math class, means the average. So it's asking us to find the average temperature from the list. We know in order to find averages, we add up all the numbers, and then we divide by the number of numbers. So let's write that down. Please show all your work. Okay, your question should look like this. Now, if you had not put a positive in front of this one, that would be okay. We know that that means the same thing, right? You do need to have the negatives there, however. Okay, then you're going to add them up. Remember that the addition and subtraction needs to be left from right, and the average temperature is negative 2 degrees Celsius. Okay, here's your assignment. Good luck. Show all your work, please.